Well, with that, I mean, one of the elephant in the room is the prospective petition to recall Commissioner Hollinger and myself. And, I'd like to take a moment to address that as it comes forward. I found out yesterday that it will be essentially moving forward, and so I'd like to address that if you would entertain that. The petition to recall me was filed on July 28th by Jeremy Crone. The petition states, despite repeated calls for transparency, accountability, and action from citizens and employees of Curry County, Commissioner J. Trost has failed the people his position serves. Now, I don't feel like I'm failing the folks that voted me into this position, but I will continue on. Trost has repeatedly defended the actions of an employee under his control who continues to subject Curry County to risk and litigation. Trost lied to the public when asked about this employee to minimize his behavior. So what I'll say is, individually, none of us control any employee. Only as a body and with a census can we make decisions. There's no context to the rest of this. It's baseless and seems to be an attempt to fill lines without any substance and thwart accountability of perjury by being vague. The next statement is, Trost has created a culture of fear and retaliation that prevents employees from speaking up. I find this statement to lack sincerity and honesty, and I will explain why. On April 16th, at 8:06 p.m., I received a message from the petitioner, Jeremy Crone, stating, under anonymity, as I fear retaliation from both fronts, I believe you to be more reasonable. If you'd like to hear my perspective, let me know. Can't talk while working, not interested in some meeting. I replied on April 17th at 10:21 a.m., Lieutenant Crone, I am very much willing to discuss anything you wish to. I will tell you that if you tell me anything that requires an ethical or legal response or follow-up, I would do so and therefore not be held to retaining your ask for anonymity. The reality is I find this to be flat dishonest, and that he claims that I cause a culture of fear and retaliation when he actually sought me out privately because he stated he believed me to be more reasonable. We met in my office on April 18th, and I took notes from that meeting. And to be transparent, I will read those notes. April 18th, meeting with Lieutenant Crone. Was worried about Ward finding out. He parked out back and came in civilian clothes. Began talking about the JMOUD grant and wanted to know why we were reluctant to prove it. I explained that he needed to follow the grant application policies and shouldn't have brought it to us in the 11th hour. I also stated that we needed the sheriff to attend as he would ultimately be responsible for the follow-through and we would need his assurance on that. Crone then stated that we will never get the stats that we are asking for because Ward doesn't have them. I stated that I don't understand how he can't provide them. For instance, the electronic self-reporting should be an easy thing to track. He said he isn't sure, but the patrol lacks accountability and structure. He said that he struggles to supervise them in the jail and can't wait for them to be back out on the road. Said that is why he ran for sheriff. I asked what I could do to help with this, and he said he will be asking to retain all of his staff, including supervisors. I responded by telling him that I didn't see any changes needed to be made in the jail or dispatch, as they are both funded out of general fund and should remain stable. He then got back to the JMOUD grant and said it was too late to apply this year, but hopefully we will be prepared in October when it opens again. I agreed and asked why the sheriff attempted to go around the BOC and asked the treasurer to approve accepting the grant without authorization, and he stated he didn't know why he did that. The next statement in the petition states, Trost supports expenditures like additional legal fees to litigate against elected officials. I have to assume that this refers to the declaratory judgment that the BOC is seeking in an effort to find resolution to the matters of a board order that identifies roles and responsibilities per ORS of the sheriff and the commissioners. This does not, it does state officials, plural, and the only other fees that have been approved is on behalf of the assessor, and that was to hire an independent investigator per her tort notice. The next statement says, Trost knowingly supports an inaccurate and misleading budget due to time constraints. Trost supports funding the city of Brookings to patrol harbor, reducing funding for public safety to the rest of the county. It is true. Harbor is the largest unincorporated population center in Curry County. I do support exploring agreements with the city of Brookings, who provides 24-hour patrol to patrol in harbor. This will not take from the funding from the rest of the county. In fact, it would free up resources to focus more on central and north county areas. I am confused as to why seeking alternative methods to increase public safety is controversial, especially from a petitioner that is in public safety. This body of commissioners are so dedicated to public safety that each of us continue to give $22,000 a year of our salary to the sheriff's office.
Not only that, but we also just offered to give up more of our salaries during this last budget procession.
Correct. $22,000 a year equals $1,833 per month that we sacrifice to improve public safety. The next statement says, Trost exhibits a willingness to engage all residents by an unwillingness to engage all residents by holding meetings primarily in Brookings with little public notice. Since becoming the board chair on May 7th, we have conducted 22 meetings. 16 of those have been located in Gold Beach, and 6 have been in Brookings. So to say that I primarily hold meetings in Brookings is provably false. The next statement says, Trost participated without objection in a meeting held in Brookings that focused on logging lands in Port Orford. This is a blatant attempt to gaslight people from Port Orford. The meeting referred to was a 2-day training workshop that was attended by several political entities, including the Talawadini tribe and Coos County. This was a training on local stewardship law that impacts federal lands. There was no talk of logging in Port Orford. In fact, I'm not sure there are very many trees within the city of Port Orford to log. And that would be up to the city council of Port Orford to decide. Yep. The next, Trost inconsistently managed meetings, holding views of opposition to strict rules, but allowing views of support more latitude and engagement. And I will go back and review to see if that is a true statement. I will do that. I haven't had time to review all the meetings and public comments to see if that is a true statement. The petition ends with accountability, transparency, and honesty are paramount for confidence in county government. This is the truest statement in the petition, and the real reason this petition has been filed. The BOC has been working diligently to increase accountability, transparency, and honesty to the public, and it is because of this that we are now targets of this recall. The culture that the BOC has disrupted is a culture of status quo, as Commissioner Hollinger just spoke on. The culture of just give me my budget, I request, and don't ask questions. The culture of if you want to survive as a politician in Curry County, just keep the status quo and don't make waves. This is evident because the only true statements in this petition is that I support exploring the city of Brookings patrolling in harbor, and that I support seeking a declaratory judgment to settle the ORS identified roles and responsibilities between the BOC and the Sheriff's Office, both of which will have drastic effects on the status quo. I received the message of not disrupting the status quo shortly after I was appointed. My main focus was and continues to be to find solutions to fix our funding issues, in particular for public safety. I was attending an AOC County College at the time and asked if they had a method to ask the counties for funding and staffing information for the sheriff's office across the state. I wanted to better understand just how underfunded we were. The Association of Oregon Counties reached out to the Oregon State Sheriff's Association and asked on my behalf if there was any of this information available. I then received a call from Sheriff Ward to come to his office. I did, and he was in there with his captain and handed me an ORS paper, ORS 206.210, Authority of Sheriff to Organize Office, and said, I got a call from OSSA, and I hear you're snooping around asking questions about my office. You need to understand that I run this office. You do not. I informed him that I was asking for information to compare funding from county to county so that I had a baseline to begin figuring out how much revenue we needed. This was my introduction to asking questions. This was then again highlighted when I learned that the county was 2 fiscal years behind in reconciliations. I addressed this in a public meeting, and the treasurer at the time, David Barnes, responded by stating something to the effect that it wasn't a big deal until you made it one. To which I responded, if this isn't a big deal to you, who is it supposed to be a big deal to? Not long after, we partnered with Lane Council of Governments to assist with our finance department, and then we began learning about all the problems with our financial controls, in particular cash receipting. We then hired a new finance director who was our assigned consultant from LCOG, and she began unraveling the state of our finances, and what she found was incredibly egregious. Shortly after she gave a report to the BOC, the treasurer, Dave Barnes, resigned. We are still finding and fixing financials from Treasurer Barnes' time here and are taking steps to procure a forensic auditor to examine all of the finances from 2020 to 2024. The BOC is not adhering to a mentality of status quo. We are looking into alternative solutions to maximize the funds that we have. We are asking departments what level of service they are providing with your tax dollars. We are working towards increasing accountability to our county policies and collective bargaining agreements. I understand that change isn't easy, and that many of these individuals would rather us just not ask the hard questions. In fact, taking the path of least resistance would be the safest route to take for our political reputations. However, it is our responsibility to continue to seek answers to the most difficult questions in order to find long-term solutions. The truth is, we take our responsibility very seriously, including being the best stewards of your tax dollars that we can be, while attempting to gain and provide information to the public. Asking the sheriff to use data to show what his office is accomplishing with the tax dollars being budgeted, stopping the declaratory judgment from reaching court, and seeking a forensic audit are the real reasons this petition is being filed. This petition for recall is their attempt to retain the status quo and to prevent the accountability, transparency, and action that we are driven to provide the citizens of Curry County. And that is my statement on this.